Welcome to Divorce and Mortgage Strategies, brought to you by the Divorce Lending Association, where clarity meets strategy in the financial side of divorce. We don't just talk about houses, we talk about strategic solutions that protect futures. Today, host John Marroni, certified divorce lending professional, welcomes Eric Schutzbank.
Welcome to another episode of Divorce Resource Spotlight. I'm John Marroni, a certified divorce lending professional and mortgage advisor. Over the years, I have learned that successful divorce outcomes rarely happen by accident. They happen when the right professionals are involved at the right time. In this series, I introduce trusted professionals who help individuals and families navigate the legal, financial, and personal sides of divorce. My goal is simple: to share practical insights and connect you with experts who can help you make informed decisions and move forward with confidence. Today, I am pleased to welcome attorney Eric Schutzbank. Eric has been practicing law in Massachusetts and New Hampshire for more than 25 years. His practice includes family law, divorce, child custody, guardianships, elder law, criminal law, probate litigation, mediation, and collaborative law. He also serves as a guardian ad litem, giving him a unique perspective on helping families resolve difficult situations while keeping the best interests of children at the forefront. Eric, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me, John.
Of course. Now, before we talk about the legal side of divorce, please tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to focus on your practice on family law and helping families through these difficult transitions.
Happy to do so. So I grew up in New York, went to college in Ohio, went to law school in Boston, and then went to work for my aunt, attorney Maxa Barrett, hence the name Barrett and Schutzbank.
Yep.
And although she's retired and I'm now the managing partner of the firm, she was doing a lot of family law, and I found that I was interested in it. I found that I liked doing it, and I found that it really fit my skill set in terms of being to help families through difficult times.
Okay, so while they're going through that, or even like right at the beginning, like what are some of the biggest mistakes people make, before they even begin the divorce process?
Well, in terms of biggest mistakes, I think some of the ones that they do are they don't have all the information they should going in. They don't gather their financial documents going in. They think they can hide assets. They can't. Or they move out of the marital home before they should, depending on what their goals are. And the biggest mistake is they don't talk to a lawyer and they don't talk to a team of professionals.
So they just think, oh, this makes sense. I can do this. Everybody will understand why I'm doing this.
Something along those lines. Or why do I need a lawyer? I can do this. And as I will say to people, if you have a heart problem, you're not going into your bathroom to fix your own heart. You're going to go see a cardiologist. And if you need heart surgery, you're going to want someone who has experience. And legal issues are just as difficult as medical ones, and you really do need an expert and a team of experts to help you through it.
Yeah, I mean, because the legal system, is a lot more complicated than people think. Sometimes what someone thinks should be logical, decisions are totally different, and it could be something simple as, I guess, looking at the best interests of the children, and folks might not be looking at things like that, or something along that line.
Well, the biggest problem, John, is that in divorce and all family law matters, emotions often rule the roost and control what's going on. And when emotions take over and control, you don't make sound decisions. As an attorney, part of my job is to take the emotions out of the equation and look at things like the total financial picture. What is in the best interest of the children? What makes sense for the family unit? Because even though you're getting divorced, if you have kids, you're still a family unit. You're two households, two families, but you're still a parental unit for your children. And with families without children, what makes financial sense? What are realistic goals under the law? And people, their emotions get the better from them. Why do I have to pay support? Why is support so high? Why do I have to give up part of my retirement? And you really have to explain that to people so they have realistic expectations during the process.
Yeah. What I find is when it comes to assets, the marital home is often one of the largest assets in divorce. So what should people consider when deciding whether to keep the home, buy out their spouse or even sell it.
So you're correct, 1,000%. The marital home in a lot of families is the biggest asset. Sometimes it's the only asset. Things to consider. One, why do you want to consider staying in the home? Is it for the children to get through schooling? Can you afford it? Realistically, you need to sit down with someone who can look at your financial circumstances, figure out approximately what your support's going to be, and see if the math makes sense. Why are you opposing a buyout? Is it because you just don't want the spouse to end up with the house? Or is there some other reason? Are you concerned that they're not going to be able to refinance the mortgage and get your name off of it? So those are the factors. Does a sale make sense? What time of the year is it? When to put it on the market. But those are the factors. If I want to stay in the house, but I can't stand being in it with my spouse, should I move out? How does that affect me? Those are all factors that you need to take into consideration when determining what the best course of action. And I will tell you the most difficult part of that in my job is when I have to tell clients realistically they cannot afford to stay in the home. That's always a very tough and difficult discussion.
Yeah, because the plan might work for a couple of months, but it may not be sustainable.
Sometimes it doesn't work for a couple of months. They don't have the money to pay the bills. And you're right, it's not sustainable, or they end up house rich and cash poor so that everything's in the house. And if anything unexpected happens, a flat tire, a car problem, a medical problem, they don't have the money to deal with those things, and then they're stuck.
Yeah, no, those are all great factors to point out to folks to consider. It's not just like one or two things. It's the whole thing, which is great. So let me ask you this. What do you wish every divorcing parent understood about custody and developing a parenting plan?
What I wish every divorcing parent understood is their children should have two parents that love them and participate in their lives, with exceptions when there's abuse or substance abuse or other legitimate issues. And often that they need to separate their anger about the breakdown of the relationship versus co-parenting the children. The number of parents who involve their children in the divorce is much higher than one would think. And if you weren't so upset and so angry, you would never do that. And that's really one of the keys. And in terms of custody, there's two types, legal and physical. Are you going to make decisions with a co-parent? Where are the children going to live? Those are two separate issues, and people often don't understand that.
All right. So how do you walk people through that to get them to understand it?
Well, one of the first things I'll do is find out if they understand the difference. I'll ask them if they know what legal custody is, if they know what physical custody is. And depending on whether I'm in Massachusetts or New Hampshire, those questions actually can get answered differently because New Hampshire doesn't use terms such as custody anymore. They use decision-making responsibility and residential responsibility. And in New Hampshire, they actually potentially count the hours that a child is with each parent, where Massachusetts really looks at where does the child put their head on at night. So that's the first things. I'll also go through what are the positive and negative parenting attributes of the other parent. If you have the salesman who's on the road 300 days a year, that parent probably has not been a parent participant in making decisions or raising the children. But it's very rare that when the parent comes in and says, I do 100% of everything. When you actually walk them through it, what you find is the other parent may not be doing much, but they're doing something. So walk them through, what was the parenting like when the relationship was good? Has anything changed since the relationship went bad? Why have those changes done? And if they're not interested in shared parenting, if they're not interested in a joint legal, find out why. Often people misunderstand joint legal custody. Joint legal custody is merely the obligation to communicate and reach consensus on what we call the big four items: education, where the kid's going to go to school, non-emergency medical, because obviously if it's an emergency, you don't say, don't save my child, I got to talk to the other parent. No, you say, save my kid. And then you get on the phone and say, hey, this is happening, you need to get to the hospital. Third, religion. If you have a Hindu versus a Buddhist, how are you raising the children? Hindu or Buddhist or agnostic? And then the fourth is big ticket welfare items. You probably don't need to reach consensus on whether your kid's going to Canopy Lake Park on your parenting time. That's a day-to-day decision. Now, you want to take your 6-year-old skydiving? That's a per se dangerous thing. You probably need the permission of the other parent. That's a joint legal custody type of decision. So that's really one of the more difficult things, is making sure they understand it, because sometimes they think joint legal custody means, hey, we have to decide whether or not we have broccoli or cauliflower with dinner. And those day-to-day decisions aren't part of joint legal custody.
So what happens if, someone feels that the other spouse is not compliant? Like, what do they do?
It depends is the quick answer. Are they non-compliant? Let's look at what they're doing. Are they not communicating? Are they just saying no to be difficult? If they're not communicating and not participating, you can file what's called a complaint for modification, because you can show a material change in circumstances, which is the legal requirement to modify certain orders that are modifiable, and say to the judge, I've tried to co-parent, the other parent won't participate in the process, and therefore no decisions are getting made.
Okay.
Or you can file a contempt if they are specifically violating a clear and unequivocal order, and the judge will sanction them, and hopefully that will get compliance. And there's also talking to them, trying to resolve the issues informally, and sometimes you can't. And if a parent is going to not actively co-parent, they may lose legal custody. If they're unreasonable in their decisions, they could lose legal custody. One of the biggest fights you see is over medicating children with ADHD or maybe bipolar. One parent's going to be very anti-medication, and sometimes that's the parent who's also ADHD or bipolar who the child inherited it from. And so that is often a very difficult and complicated situation.
Wow, yeah, it does get complicated. And divorce can be expensive too. So let me ask you this question regarding the financing of a divorce. Like, what are some practical ways people can reduce legal fees without compromising their case?
One is the mediation process. Going to a mediator who's a third-party neutral, who will help the two of you reach an agreement. That's an inexpensive way. And then you just really need a lawyer to review it with you to make sure that your rights were protected. Because mediators, they will put anything in an agreement as long as it is not unethical, immoral, or illegal. Even though they may know the courts aren't going to approve it. One of the common things you see in mediated agreements are parenting plans for pets. Well, under Massachusetts law, and this pains me as a dog guy, pets are not pets, they're property. And most judges will not approve agreements that have language that says the dog's going to go here. The exceptions to that are sometimes if a dog is following a child, especially if it's an autistic child, you may say, Your Honor, it's not about custody of the dog. It's about this child needs to have the dog with them for emotional support or whatever the reason being. And so you need to have a lawyer review it so you know going in, hey, the judge this doesn't comply with the law. You can do this. It's not illegal per se, but the judge may not approve it. And they need that going in, and they need to know, okay, this is a sound agreement. Or I understand that I may be able to do better on an issue, but I'm comfortable with this. It's my job not to put a monkey wrench in the agreement, but to make sure my clients understand their rights. So mediation, great way to go. Another way, although it can be expensive, is the collaborative law process. That's a goal-oriented, team-oriented approach to divorce. And if you look at collaborative law versus a trial, collaborative law is going to be less expensive. And the other benefit to collaborative law is the emotional toll, which can be quite expensive on a personal level. Given that it takes the adversarialness out of the process, it's often better for people, especially co-parents, it enables them to co-parent. Also, making sure that when you have to have things your lawyers need, like your financial documents, you go and get them. If I have to subpoena records or I have to spend time when you come in with a box of documents that make no sense, you're going to increase your legal fees. Or incessant emailing of your attorney. If you think, oh, I have a question at 9 a.m. and then 10:30, something else comes on your mind. And then 1 o'clock, something else. And then 3 o'clock, something else. Well, that's 4 different times you've contacted your attorney at different times of the day. That's 4 different legal bills. So it may be better to say, you know what, once a day, I'm going to come up with my questions, because I can then say to the attorney, hey, here's everything I need to know today, and it keeps my legal fee down a little bit.
So if someone's about to meet with you, if you give them like one piece of advice before they ever meet with you, what would it be?
Have as much financial information as you can before that first meeting. And I understand in many marriages that's not possible. One spouse did everything, or you've been separated a while and you might not know your spouse's finances. But at least having some kind of a snapshot so that I can give you good advice. And if we're having a meeting on a specific issue, do your prep work beforehand. If I tell you we're going to talk about parenting at the next time we're meeting, what holiday schedule do you want? What parenting plan do you want? Give some thought to that so you're not making decisions on the fly.
All right, that's great. So let me ask you this question. You touched upon it briefly with the collaboration. And divorce often involves a team of professionals: attorneys, financial advisors, therapists, mediators, mortgage professionals, and others. In your experience, how does having the right team benefit your clients?
Having a team can benefit clients in a lot of ways. First off, it enables you to have expertise in certain areas. Having a financial planner who can look at your finances and say, this is the best settlement option for you from these assets, makes an unemotional decision for you and helps you make the right choice. Or if there are child issues, having a team of therapists in place that can help maybe a child get over what we call refuse resist, or parent contact problems, or alienation, or a substance abuse specialist who's helping a parent with a substance abuse disorder not drink or do drugs in the presence of the children. Having that team enables you to have multiple professionals give you the best advice possible.
That's great. Well, Eric, thank you for sharing your experience and insights today. And one thing I hope viewers take away from these conversations is that divorce is really something anyone should navigate alone. As you can see, having the right professionals involved at the right time can make all the difference. So if someone would like to learn more about your practice, Eric, or connect with you, what's the best way to reach you?
So the 2 ways: you can go to my website, which is berid-schutzbank.com. And as you can see, that's how you spell both names. Mm-hmm. So berid-schutzbank.com. They can also call my office at 978-655-4282. And John, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today and to your listeners.
No, thank you for joining me. And thanks to everyone watching. If you found this conversation helpful, please follow for future episodes of Divorce Resource Spotlight, where we introduce trusted professionals who help individuals and families navigate divorce with greater clarity and confidence. I'm John Marroni. Remember, the right professional at the right time can make all the difference. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us on Divorce Mortgage Strategies, powered by the Divorce Lending Association. If today's conversation brought you clarity, insight, or inspiration, we encourage you to subscribe and share this episode with others in your circle. For more resources, or to connect with a certified divorce lending professional in your area, visit divorcelendingassociation.com. And be sure to download the free Divorce Strategy Hub mobile app for tools, education, and support designed to guide you through the financial side of divorce. Until next time, remember, in divorce, the mortgage isn't the problem, it's the plan.